I want to welcome you to the 18th show on RMan+Live Talk Show, where we're going to dive deep into the conversation that matters about women. Mr. Desmond?
Yes, so as I mentioned, I'm D.E. Wilder. And today, as Mr. James mentioned, we're going to tackle a topic that affects millions of women, and that is mental health.
Yeah, and we're not doing it alone. We have an incredible panel here. As you can see, we're going to let you know who they are, of health professionals joining us to share insights, debunk myths, and offer practical advice.
Absolutely, absolutely. I would love for you to give a beautiful introduction to our distinguished guest.
You like how beautiful? Very beautiful, or just semi-beautiful?
As beautiful as they are and as beautiful as you can get.
Okay.
Let them have
All
it.
right. You asked for it. Okay. First, I want to first introduce our moderators because we got to shout them out. They're going to be doing some work for us. So I got several moderators in the room. I am Licia. I'm inspired. The lead moderator, Angie, who's one of our partners here, right? We got Rodney in the room, right? I think we got Gwen and if I missed any names, we got Rachel in the room, right? We got a power team that's behind us in this room. We got Praise in the room, right? These are all our moderators. Make sure you say hello and you make sure you follow them because they're high engagers. You hear me? They are high engagers, right?
Yes. Teamwork makes the dream work. Thank you, guys.
And now I need to address the beautiful panel that's on this floor. Okay. We got to do this the right way. This guest is a live host who considers herself a high-powered thinker, a high-powered reflector, and a leader. She went to Howard University, y'all, where she holds a bachelor's in broadcast journalism, and she has a master's in media. She has written 7 ebooks on mindset encouragement for the soul, body, and spirit. And if you want to check it out, you go to her link in her bio on TikTok, all right? She has 1,826 followers and almost 5,000 likes. I want y'all to say hello in the chat to Shifting Your Mindsets, everybody. Yeah. Okay. And next, she has a PhD in clinical psychology and is a licensed psychologist for over 20 years. She is nationally certified in clinical neuropsychology. She's also is a live host with almost 12,000 followers and 10K likes. Let me hear y'all say hello to Dr. Heather Mental Wellness. Yeah. And last but not least, she's a graduate of Fayetteville University and holds a bachelor's in psychology from the Walden University, where she also earned her master's degree in psychology. She has also obtained her doctorate from Cal Southern University. She is a life coach, a former psychotherapist, and a certified meditation instructor. She goes live with 7,500 followers dedicated to her and almost 40,000 likes, y'all. Let's say hello to Dr. GLK in the chat. Yeah, you see what I'm saying? I love that. You see the chat? They saying hello. And that is our party for today, y'all. Let's get into it. Music's done. Mr. Des, take us to the first question.
Wow, but that's a beautiful introduction, and it's wonderful with these distinguished guests. Thank you, Mr. James, for that.
Yep.
Let us get into it. This is a topic that, as I mentioned before, affects millions and millions of people every day. It's a very important topic, so that's why we needed such distinguished guests to come on and speak to this. And so we got some fantastic questions, so I'm going to get right into it. we're focusing on mental health and as it relates to women and how it affects their lives. First question is, what are some of the most pressing issues and mental health challenges that women faces today? And these questions are open to the panel unless I direct it to a specific person.
Anyone like to go first?
Let me ask the question.
You got to unmute yourself, by the way, too.
I'm happy to go.
Sure.
I don't know who wants to go first. Thank you, first of all, for having me. I'm so glad to be a part of this and so excited to meet all these amazing people. You already introduced me, so I don't know what else to say. But for me, I think I would like to just say, first of all, that mental health is like a broader concept. Like it includes like how you adjust to the world, how you're doing overall. And within that, like I focus on my channel on mental wellness, like having a great life, a really amazing life. But like mental health is like that bigger concept. And then within that, you have mental illness, which is where they have diagnosed specific problems. So you don't have to have a diagnosis to have problems, though. It's like there's a threshold right here, right, to get the name diagnosed on your name. And you can have problems all the way up to it. You might only be here, but you're still having problems. I would like to point that out. There's a lot of men and women that struggle with what I would call sub-threshold problems in their day-to-day life. And unfortunately, a lot of people are not able to get treatment, which makes me sad. But so I'm happy to keep going, but I don't want.
Can you break that down just a little bit? Sub-threshold meaning?
Yeah.
Oh, it's okay. So let's say you have to have a 10 to get a diagnosis of major depressive disorder.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
So you may have a 5.
Right.
You're still feeling depressed, but you don't actually get the name of major depressive disorder. So
oftentimes people don't meet a certain benchmark, so they don't get the help that they need.
Exactly. And it's a combination of that and then having access to healthcare that's affordable, that's good, that there's so many things that for men and women that need to be done. So so that's there's a continuum where people go up to a certain level. That's where you get a diagnosis, but you can have like anxiety, for example. You can be really stressed out and nervous and have problems in your daily life. But if it doesn't get to a certain point, then you won't get like a diagnosis necessarily. So I just want to say that there are a lot of people struggling that wouldn't necessarily be represented in the things that I'm going to talk about.
Nice.
Because that doesn't mean that their problems are any less.
Of course. Of course. Miss Shifting.
Yes. Thank you for having me. Thank you, Dr. Heather, for sharing that information. That's very insightful. That's something that I was not aware of. And if you wouldn't mind just repeating the question.
The gist of this question, the first question was, what are some of the most pervasive things that women are facing as it relates to mental health in today's world?
Yes, so I'll certainly speak on how, just from personal observation, just growing up as a woman, I was born in 85. And so in a household where pretty big family, my mom, one of 8 siblings, my dad, one of 5 siblings.
Wow, big family.
Yes. And so I had lots of aunts, lots of uncles. And just as a child, as a young girl, just observing how my aunts and my mom would handle certain situations, whether it was taking on multiple roles when things were going on just in our environments, getting into my teenage years and seeing how, as a young woman, you go through your cycle and it being a surprise for some girls. It was like, what is happening right now? My male friends are not going through this. I did not know that this was unique to just girls. And so just getting over, say, the psychological embarrassment of it all, just as a young girl going to a school where there were both girls and boys. And so you're now leaving the household and going to school, and then having to decide if you're going to ask your teacher if you could be excused and having to explain why. And then if you had a male teacher, it was just awkward because sometimes the male teachers would be a little bit more harsh than the women teachers. So even though it does not seem like a big deal, it is for a young girl who is learning her body, learning who she is in this big world of opportunity and experiences, and then going into your high school years, and now you're more involved in extracurricular activities and you're meeting other girls and guys who have come from various backgrounds and they don't think like you. They didn't come from an upbringing like you. You're all different. How do you matriculate through the mental roadblocks that may arise when someone says, hey, why do you talk like that? Or, hey, why do you dress like that? Or why is your hair like that? In your mind, growing up, there was never anything wrong with this because not in a lot of households do you get affirmed as a young adult. You don't get the love, the compassion, the support, having a support system growing up in certain communities. And just now you're going through the idea of, should I go to trade school? Should I start a business? Should I go to college or university? What are the options and what does that look like? And who else do I have to encounter on this journey? And so you're thinking about a lot of things. And as a young girl going through life and figuring things out, and there are many times where it's just you and your thoughts.
Right.
And your thoughts can be overwhelming. They can overpower your expression of who you are as an individual. Because
and you're saying that everyone around you and most of the people around you are not equipped or have the understanding to support you in the way that you need.
Precisely, because at the end of the day, your parents or your guardians can instill their values, their morals, their principles, training you up in the way that you should go. But your parents and your guardians aren't always going to be around when you have to make those tough decisions or a decision, period. You're like, wait, I can't call my mom anymore. I can't call my
Right.
dad anymore.
I understand. I want to just get Dr. GLK into this and
Yeah.
just reiterate the question that it was, what are some of the largest things that women might be facing nowadays as it relates to mental health?
Thank you so much for this opportunity. This is exactly what wellness is all about, these type
Right.
of platforms. And it is an honor to be on the platform with these phenomenal
No,
women.
it's our honor to have you.
Yes, and the excellent, brilliant men. But some of the challenges that women face today as matriarchs of their household is that women tend to internalize their distress, which can often contribute to depression or anxiety. But the good news about that is that when women become overwhelmed and feel as though there's no option as far as resources and community assets, they're willing to seek assistance. They're willing to go to therapy. They embrace the opportunity to be better and do better. And so when we think about the households, when we think about the community, when we think about the workplace, it can be overwhelming for women because their responsibilities are so enormous, just as equally to the men, but women are the nurturers of families.
Right.
And when they are distressed, who do they turn to?
That's
Who
right.
are their resources?
Yeah.
And so when they're looking for objectivity, the resources become, in a very therapeutic manner, they seek out for therapists, people who can offer them a healthy, safe space to vent, to share their most intimate feelings, to be vulnerable during that time so that they can come back into the community, come back into their households, come back into the workplace to be better, to be in a safe place of healing, a safe place of productivity. And so that question is very powerful, but I would unload it in a way that women internalize, men are more external with how they handle distress, meaning that men are more likely to gravitate to aggressive behavior, They're more likely to gravitate to substance use. They're more likely to gravitate to ineffective coping strategies. And the unfortunate aspect that most men are very reluctant about therapy. That's the sadder aspect of it.
Right.
Women are the ones that are willing to embrace therapy. And so that's the difference in the gender. And so internalizing and externalizing.
Wow. Being that you said that, I read somewhere women are more likely than men to experience mental health conditions. In the U.S., I think it was, they said 26.4% of women reported having a mental illness in 2022 compared to 19.7% of men. So you're saying that women may actually suffer from mental illness more than men, but they're more proactive in dealing with it. So
Absolutely, more proactive. And the most important aspect to consider is how are we educating our young girls and our young boys about these different conditions when they feel rejected, when they have heartache, when they have pain, when they are distressed. How are we educating them on what resources look like in the community so that we can intervene in this generational, societal, stereotypical perception?
okay.
That's excellent because each of the distinguished guests made some very important points, and that leads me to the next question of how does societal expectations and gender norms and cultural pressures affect anxiety and the pressures that are put on women?
Go. I don't know if we're going in order.
Yeah, you
Jump right in.
just say it like this. They need to invent a button where you could put a hand and it let you know how on Zoom
Yes, yes.
they need to do that.
Yeah.
Right? Just go like this.
Still okay.
But I love for this to be an interactive conversation like it is. Anyone who feels just jump right in
Yeah.
as we keep moving along.
On Dr. GLK's panel, she does a good job of saying, if you have something, I can't remember how you say, if you have something to offer of value, say something. If you don't say anything, just
I
listen.
love that.
Just listen. It's okay.
I love that.
Go ahead, Dr. Heather.
I love what Dr. GLK touched on, and actually she didn't just touch on it, she brought it up. It's a huge issue that women are twice as likely to be diagnosed with an anxiety disorder and twice as likely to be diagnosed with a mental depression than men. But they are like, I would say the same thing, exactly what you said. They're more internalizing and they get help. They do have a lot more attempts to unalive themselves, but they're less successful. Men are 4 times more likely because they use lethal methods. So that's something to be aware of as well. And now I've already forgotten what the question is.
Look, the question was, how does societal expectations and norms and things of that nature affect the anxiety and pressures that women face?
Okay, sorry. Yes. Actually, I looked up to see if there were any regional differences in the United States. Like, I'm originally from North Carolina. I live in Ohio now. So I lived in Georgia. I lived in Atlanta. So I've been in Ohio about 22 years.
Okay.
But before that, I was raised in the South. I was curious because to me, the cultures are different. I can articulate that there's a lot of differences, but actually the research shows that it's the same in all regions of the Northeast, the South, the Midwest, the West Coast, for women being like more likely to have that anxiety. So I think there are some things that go across the things like you mentioned, like being nurturing, and the women oftentimes carry that pressure. So it goes even to the idea that even if they're not at a diagnosis like level, they're still feeling that pressure to be like caring. Like for me, I mean, it's like a transition. Like I work with the criminally insane during the day, and then I come home and I'm a mom. So it's a huge shift. It's like I have to turn the switch.
I could imagine.
On and off. And I work almost exclusively with men.
Wow.
So it's a completely different world. And I know for me, like I have to develop certain specific skills that work for me so that I can be present for my family and for my kids. But I looked at as much as I could just to see, because I was really curious, that there aren't any differences in the even within races. The only difference is women that are mixed race have 5 times the rate of mental health problems.
Wow.
Which I thought was interesting because across Asian, white, African American, every other, I could look, I have it next to me here, but I don't, off the top of my head, out of like Native Americans, they would listed all of them, and none of them showed any difference in, except for mixed race. So I thought that was an interesting finding. I'm not sure what it means, but I certainly know there is a lot of stressors for everyone, but obviously we need to maybe focus in on that group, I think, to help them too.
Absolutely. It could possibly mean, especially in the nation we live in, that they suffer from a higher level of pressure or expectation in the environment that they're in. That's very interesting.
I would have to say for women, definitely, I don't think this will ever go away, but body image. A lot of women, anywhere from weight. I know a lot of women have, the measuring, the wear in their restrooms or in the kitchens, or the men having to feel like they have to be the provider in the relationship, and the mental turmoil that may go through their minds. And I had the pleasure of and the privilege of growing up with a twin brother.
You didn't mention that you're a twin.
That's something I don't share, but because I'm a very private person, but I grew up with a twin brother. And so I got to see just how mental awareness affected me as well as him. And we did a lot of things together. We went to the same school.
Right.
We walked to school together. Experiences that I had indirectly would affect him, and experiences that he had would affect me. And so I was more, what's the word I was for? I would become a recluse and things would happen. And he was more, let's talk through it. And I was like, I'm not ready. Give me a second. And having grown up in a 2-parent household, my father was the primary breadwinner. I don't like that word, but it's a term that was coined by somebody. And my mom, even though she did not have to work, she chose to, just because there were things that she liked doing and didn't want to have to wait around on dad. And so just seeing, just from some aunts, their struggle with their body image, with weight, and maybe their hair, and they were afraid to cut their hair because in society, if a woman cuts her hair, something's wrong with her, or she's a part of the LGBTQIA community. And where that came from, I have no idea. And so it just seeing that would always make me question, like, where did a lot of the stigmas come from? Who told us that? I know a lot, but I'm just saying it out loud. Right. Who told us that a woman could not cut her hair and still embrace her full femininity as a woman? Right. Or who told us that a man cannot express himself and cry and share his feelings and still not maintain his full masculinity as a gentleman? So
yeah, you bring up the hair, thing. It makes me think about the Crown Act. A company I work for is one of the top companies that actually was pushing the Crown Act with the Congress and got it passed. And I think younger women now, which I like to see, especially Black and brown women, they're going natural now. You know what I'm saying? I see it a lot now, and I see companies accepting it. I remember in the 90s, the 80s, no way. Women were perming their hair, and we don't know the cancer and all that leading to that. You know what I'm saying? I was putting them finger wave relaxers in my scalp. I got to see the dermatologist for my scalp because I was burning off the skin off the top of my head. You know what I'm saying? That's why he ain't got no hair right now. I'm just messing with you. Anyway. But yeah, you know, the point is, I'm seeing younger women, and even my
explain the Crown Act briefly, real quick.
The Crown Act is just a policy that they applied to say that people should be able to be accepted as they are. You know what I'm saying? So when you go to work, if you don't want to perm your hair and you want to leave it coarse like a brown woman's hair is generally, and Just leave it natural. You should be treated the same as anyone else. Your hair should not stop you from getting opportunities, jobs, promotions, all of that stuff. It's a lot of things other than that, but it's also, that's one of the number one things, because people would judge you based on your hair. You know what I'm saying? I see a lot of the young generation. It makes me proud. They wearing the afros and everything. And even my daughter, 21, for the last 5 years, she's been saying, I want to keep my stuff natural. But what they don't understand is a lot of work to keep it natural. There's a lot of work to keep that hair natural, right?
Shifting.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so as we talk a little bit about, Des, you mind if I ask the next question?
No, go ahead, sir.
Okay.
Can I
Oh,
jump
go ahead.
in?
No, yes, go
Question,
ahead,
if you
please.
don't mind? And so let me say this quickly. It's very transparent in the communities that we live in that societal expectations place a huge load onto women, whether it's through caretaking, emotional labor, perfectionists, and Shift and hit it on the head with the image. When women step out, everyone pays attention. And so women sometimes don't have the opportunity to just be natural. The most natural place you can be is at home. Right. So when home is in distress and you're overwhelmed in your own household and you're uncomfortable in the skin that you're in because society has pushed this expectation onto you, then it makes women less vulnerable to situations and embracing services that are readily available to move them through that what we would call a healing process, because it is a healing process when women become overwhelmed because society has placed these expectations onto women. You have to be a mother. If you are a spouse, if you are a grandparent, you're working in the community, you are a leader. At what point do you get a break from those societal expectations that looks different than men, the expectations that they place on men? Right. And kudos to all the women in this chat, because we have a tough role in society, in our community, in our household, in our faith-based organizations.
That's right. Thank you, Dr. G. Answer the question for my next question.
Go ahead.
Thank you. So, Mr. James, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to harp a little bit longer on the professional side of women. There's a lot of professional women in here, and you all transitioned us back into this next question. In what ways does workplace culture, especially today's culture, this digital age we're in, and people working from home and hybrid and all that stuff, in this day and age, what type of mental health, when it comes to women, especially regarding burnout and work-life balance, impacts women differently, you feel, than men? Anyone can go first. You just go like this.
Yeah, so with workplace, again, the load is enormous and the expectations are much different for men than it is for women. As women, we have to try to do the juggling act. We have to try to balance this thing called life. You go to work. Before you go to work, you get the kids to school, you get them breakfast, you make sure that they're okay, you make sure your spouse is okay, and then you go into this leadership role where everyone is dependent on you, everyone is watching you, and there's a high expectation for you to perform in a way that's sometimes unrealistic. But because you have that strength, you have that resiliency, that expectation, because you are a woman of innovativeness, a woman of uniqueness, a woman that can make things happen, a problem solver. We're all those things. But at the end of the day, if those things are not balanced in a way that's productive and effective, it leads to burnout. Yes. It leads to mental health conditions. It triggers those symptoms of mental health condition that's called depression. And do people pay close enough attention to the signs of depression when women are isolating, when they're not doing the things that they need to do, that they cherish, that they have pleasure in doing, when that dopamine is being compromised because your load is so extensive? Wow. We really have to pay very close attention to those signs and be able to support women in balancing all of the demands on their lives, and especially in the workplace.
Wow.
I'll say that one thing that I think is a huge pressure that people don't often pay attention to is when a woman is exiting the high school years, and then it's like career time, and then it's like, do you got a spouse because you're gonna have kids, and what is it? And I'm just like, hold on. I just finished high school. I don't know if I want to get married and have kids right now, but society says if you wait too long, your biological clock is ticking. And then in between that 19 years old to 35, they like, all right, if you don't have a family, have kids by that time, then by the time you get 40, nobody gonna want you. And you just wait a second, but I need to start a career or I need to start a business. I still am trying to figure out everything that I just finished in high school, and now I'm trying to go to. It's hold the phone. Can I just breathe for a second? And so the one question that I know a lot of women possibly would avoid when they would go home for gatherings for the holidays. So when are you gonna have the grandbabies? Or so has anyone asked your hand in marriage? I'm not even really thinking about that really. I'm just trying to figure out how I'm gonna finish this term paper to turn in. And so it's something that is not spoken of. It's like an unspoken, when you gonna do it? And nobody says it, they just look at you. And then the guys are like, you still single? What's wrong with you? I'm like, wait a minute. First of all, can I learn about my independence? I just finished college. And so is there a timeline or something? Did I miss it? Was it sent out when I was born, right? Along with the social security number. So that's something that is not talked about a lot.
Before you go to the next question, Des, let me just say a couple things in the say what a couple comments that we see in the chat. So we have, let's see here. Yeah, you can wear your natural hair in school as well. Yeah, people are doing that. Poetic says sad needed crown act so we can be natural.
Exactly.
T. Marie says a lot of work to be natural. Yep, that's why I said it. We also got Praise saying it's added pressure for women. We got Leon Leaving Design saying, and that it may be why biracial girls have more issues because no matter which side they live, they're obviously, you know what I'm saying? They got the dilemmas of both sides that have to balance.
Pressure on all sides. Right.
And I'm getting a lot of great positive comments from you for you guys. Truth to power. Thank you for sharing. You guys are doing a wonderful job. So yeah, let's keep it going. And you guys, thank you for getting us to 41K. Let's keep it moving. And thank you for the gifts as well, everybody. I will definitely say that at the end. And thank you for the gifts to the panel, please. If you're going to give something, give to these women up here, really giving us some really good gems, okay? And teaching us. And if you're here, I applaud you because it's an opportunity for you to learn what women are going through so you can be a better partner to all the women in your life, whether it's your daughter, your mother, your aunt, you know what I'm saying, or your wife, your significant other, your two girlfriends, whatever it is, you know what I'm saying? Thank you for joining me. So Des, go ahead. And by the way, in about 5 minutes after this next question, we're going to start allowing some people come up to ask questions. Poetic, if you're still here, I'd like you to come and join the panel with them because I'd like you to meet these people. You're all in a like-minded field of expertise. So Angie, if you can bring Poetic up, I'd appreciate that. Thanks. Go ahead, Des.
Yes. So each one of you have tapped on some sort of statistic as we relate to women's mental health and shown that mental health is at a higher rate with women. Knowing this, what type of treatment, what is the best form of treatment that we can suggest to them as they face these mental health obstacles? What is the first thing they should do when they feel that anxiety, overwhelm, pressure, all the things that we discussed?
The first thing that is idealistic is self-awareness. You have to know when you are in the red zone.
Okay.
No one knows you better than you know yourself.
Break that down. What is the red zone?
The red zone is that when you're isolating, when you're very irritable, unlike any other time, when you're very emotional, when you're not doing the things that you once found pleasurable, when you are overeating, undereating, oversleeping, undersleeping. Those are the type of things you want to pay very close attention to. Those are the telltale signs is that you are burnout or you're headed to burnout, you're overwhelmed, you're not in a safe, healthy space. And so that self-awareness is first. Then the second avenue of effectiveness is seeking assistance and identifying being in that space and what resolution looks like. and that's by way of therapy. And so sometimes people frown upon therapy because you see, I said, and the stigma, because there's still a stigma over therapy. There's still a stigma over mental health. And so because of that stigma, people still find it difficult to reach out for help, even though the signs are there. It's very evident. Right. And so reaching out for that assistance really do link you to a healthier place where you can go and feel comfortable talking to someone who can be objective and you can utilize their expertise so that you can pour back into your family, but most importantly, pour back into yourself.
Yeah, I would piggyback on that and say that it is absolutely self-awareness and being like attentive to what you need. Unfortunately, sometimes we're so wrapped up in what we're doing that we like forget. So that's, I think, where your partner comes in. So if they see a major change in your behavior, whatever that is, whether it's like you're shutting them out or whatever, but to be sensitive and aware, to even just be open to hearing what's going on. And whether it's something that maybe as a man, you're like, I don't really understand that, like why that would be a big deal. I think being there as a support, especially since women tend to isolate and internalize a lot of problems and things that are going on, if you can help them to be more open, I really feel like that is probably the best thing that a man can do. And if the woman is working from home too, then I would say as a woman that you would need to, I don't work from home, but I would need to get out. Like I would have to schedule in times to get out of the house because I was so
That's very important.
Yeah, and isolated. And so I think that being aware of that is the first step. Absolutely. And then ideal, like you said, is to be like 100% aware of where you're at, like reading your thermometer, like all the time. And like even myself, like I teach this, I try to be very aware. Sometimes it sneaks up on me. And it's people that are closest to me that are like, are you all right? You doing okay?
I have a question for you guys, because as you say that, like I hear people in the chat saying women going to work and having to come home and be the wife and cook and things. But I see less of that. I don't know if it's just me and my family dynamic. My wife used to come home. She worked in Brooklyn and she wouldn't get home till like sometimes 7, 8 o'clock. And I worked from home. I had to start picking up a skill on cooking. Okay. Those pressures were on me to provide. You know what I'm saying? And it was some bad meals for a while before I figured it out.
You never cooked for me.
Yeah. Anyway.
I'm just saying.
But my point is that whole dynamic has changed. So how many women still identify with going to work 9 to 5 and coming home, or is your familyhood like a hybrid like mine where we share in a lot of those type of responsibilities? So I don't really see that being an extra pressure on my wife specifically because we share in those responsibilities. That's what I'm saying. You know what I'm saying?
So let me say this. Okay, let me yield to Dr. Hill.
I'm sorry. I was just going to say, I think that's amazing, but I don't think that all men are that open-minded. And I think that the sociocultural factors are still there. There's this pressure to not be too skinny, not be too heavy, not be too made up. And for women, it's never too much either way. And it's really hard to balance that when you have a partner that can help you balance it. That's amazing. But I don't think that as a rule, my sort of gut, I don't have any research behind it, would say, I don't think that, I think it's still out there. The stigma of like what women should do, what men should do. And it's hurting us, but I feel like the younger generation is breaking some of that.
You were going to say something, Dr. GOK, about that?
You're special.
Yeah, I was about to say kudos to you for being able to balance your household. That's very, very important. And
my wife is in the chat. Make sure she knows. You heard it, right? You heard it, right?
Kudos to your husband.
Do me right for Father's Day. Do me for Father's Day. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah,
sorry.
That's very important to be able to balance your household. That's very impressive. And that makes your partnership that much more connected. As a wife, I work, I'm a leader, I'm an advocate in the community, I'm in several organizations and boards, but I still come home and cook. And it's just my husband and I, because that's what I've always seen throughout my generational cycle. My great grandmother, my grandmother, they worked and they still came home and they provided for their significant other. And so that's impressive. But let me tell you what the shift is, shifting your mindset. Let me tell you what the shift is. Women have evolved. They have begun to realize that when they're overloaded, overwhelmed, underpaid, and overworked, that they must find a balance in their life, because if they don't find a balance, if we don't find a balance, then who else is going to find us that balance that we need? And so women have become so much more influential and so much of a self advocate that when it's time to shut down, they will say, these are the things, setting boundaries, these are the things that I'm not able to do today. And it's not asking for permission. It's letting you know where I am. This is how I'm feeling. This is the space I'm in. So please respect that space. And so that's what you're seeing, that the shift is as we evolve into taking better care of ourselves as women.
Okay.
Shifting, you want to add to that?
I speak from my family's experiences. Growing up, the men in our family did all the cooking, all the cleaning.
Wow.
And so they would not allow the women to do anything if it did not pertain to making sure the children were respectful, they were doing their chores and things like that. And so it was an interesting dynamic, to say the least. And then as time progressed, just seeing when we all experienced COVID during that time frame, you really didn't have much choice but to make adjustments because nobody knew what was going on. No one knew if everybody was just going to be at home. And so that mental dynamic definitely allow people to, as you mentioned, Mr. James, taking on skill sets that you never thought would come into play. And so I think it's a beautiful thing when a person who may have never wanted to change, they actually made the choice, the conscious choice to change for the better, for those around them and for themselves as well. Because not only do you have a new skill of cooking, you enjoy it. You didn't know you would.
Yeah, I didn't. You're right.
So
I didn't. I actually when I went to college, I took a course in that and I learned like the science behind it, and then it made it interesting, and then I didn't have a problem doing it.
Excellent.
That was great. So before you go, we have people in the chat. Great comments, you guys. Does anyone want to come up? Our podcast is 11:30. I don't know when you guys gotta go. If you gotta go, you just let me know. But our podcast is typically 11:30, 12, but we end at 11:30 generally. If this is not buzzing, we need people to come up and ask questions. You got 3 people here you can learn from, obviously. So let's come up and ask some questions, and so we can really have a good impact for everybody. Hi, Leanne.
Hi.
Nice to see you. You have a question?
I just want to jump in and ask a quick follow-up question to something that Dr. Jill K had mentioned as she highlighted the stress and the pressure that women endure with all these multiple responsibilities that they have. And my question was, do you think that the people that are in their lives who love them, we love you, and whether it be your spouse, children, whatever, do they know this, and are they conscious and aware of the stress and the pressure that you're going through, or is something that is overlooked?
I think most often, I don't think that it's intentional. I still think that it's an expectation. Women are expected to do certain things, duties and responsibilities. And I think sometimes men and loved ones miss an opportunity to meet women right where they are.
That's why I asked the question.
Signs are evident.
Wow. Okay. That's why I asked the question. So therefore, men and supporting the loves in your life just need to pay more attention.
Exactly.